In the bustling city of Kyoto, there lived a young man named Riku. Ambitious and determined, Riku worked tirelessly as an executive in a prominent tech company. His life was fast-paced, filled with constant meetings, deadlines, and the noise of a modern world. But despite his success, Riku felt a deep emptiness within. His mind was always racing, his thoughts never at peace, and the pressure of his responsibilities weighed heavily on him. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, Riku found himself wandering the narrow streets of Kyoto's Jian district. The traditional houses, the scent of incense, and the gentle rustling of bamboo in the wind offered a rare moment of tranquility. As he walked, he noticed a small, ancient Zen temple nestled between the modern buildings. The temple seemed almost out of place, yet it exuded a sense of timeless serenity. Curiosity piqued, Riku entered the temple grounds. The air inside was cool and calm, a stark contrast to the chaos of the city outside. He walked around until he found an elderly monk, seated on a wooden bench under a cherry blossom tree. The monk's face was weathered, but his eyes sparkled with a deep inner peace. Riku hesitated, unsure if he should interrupt, but the monk smiled warmly and motioned for him to sit. After a moment of silence, the monk spoke. "What troubles you, young man?" Riku sighed, his frustration and anxiety bubbling to the surface. "I'm exhausted, Sensei. My mind never stops racing. No matter how much I achieve, I'm never satisfied. I feel like I'm drowning in noise and expectations." The monk nodded knowingly. "You seek peace, yet you surround yourself with noise. You seek fulfillment, yet you chase after things that are fleeting. Tell me, when was the last time you truly listened to silence?" Riku frowned, puzzled by the question. "Silence? I don't have time for silence. There's always something that needs to be done, someone who needs something from me." The monk smiled again, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Silence is not an absence, Riku. It is a presence, a powerful force that can transform your life if you allow it. But to understand its power, you must experience it." Intrigued but skeptical, Riku decided to listen. The monk invited him to stay at the temple for a few days, to step away from his hectic life and immerse himself in the practice of silence. Although hesitant, Riku agreed, desperate for some form of relief. The next morning, Riku began his journey into silence. The monk instructed him not to speak, not to engage with the noise of the world, but simply to observe and listen. At first, Riku found it incredibly difficult. His mind resisted the stillness, filling the quiet with worries, doubts, and endless chatter. But as the hours passed, something unexpected happened. The noise in his mind began to fade, replaced by a profound sense of awareness. For the first time in years, Riku noticed the subtleties of his surroundings. The gentle rustle of leaves in the wind, the distant sound of a temple bell, the rhythm of his own breath. The silence was not empty, it was alive, filled with a depth and richness he had never experienced before. As the days went by, Riku's perspective began to shift. The things that had once seemed so important, the deadlines, the meetings, the endless pursuit of success, started to lose their hold on him. He realized that he had been so consumed by the noise of the world that he had lost touch with the quiet strength within himself. On the third day, Riku sat with the monk again. This time he was different. There was a calmness about him, a sense of clarity that hadn't been there before. "I think I'm starting to understand," Riku said quietly. "But why is silence so powerful? How can it change my life?" The monk looked at him with gentle eyes. "Silence is powerful because it reveals the truth. In silence there is no room for pretense, no space for the masks we wear in the world. It strips away the superficial and brings us face to face with our true selves. It allows us to see the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. And in that truth we find freedom." Riku pondered the monk's words, feeling them resonate deep within him. "But how do I take this silence with me when I go back to my life? How do I hold on to this peace in the midst of all the noise?" The monk smiled, as if he had been waiting for this question. Silence is not something you hold on to, Riku. It is something you carry within you. It is not about escaping the world, but about finding the quiet space within yourself no matter where you are or what you're doing. It is about learning to listen, not just with your ears but with your heart. When Riku returned to his life in the city, he was a changed man. The noise of the world was still there, the meetings, the deadlines, the endless demands, but it no longer consumed him. He had learned to find moments of silence in the midst of chaos, to pause and listen before reacting, to be fully present in each moment. His colleagues noticed the change as well. Riku was more focused, more composed, and surprisingly more effective. He no longer rushed through tasks but approached them with a calm, deliberate energy. And most importantly, he was at peace with himself. One evening, as Riku was leaving the office, a coworker approached him. "Riku, what's your secret? You seem so different lately. You're still getting everything done, but you're so calm. What changed?" Riku smiled, remembering the monk's words. "I learned the power of silence," he replied simply. "It's not about doing less, but about being more present in what you do. When you embrace silence, you start to see things clearly, and that changes everything." His coworker looked at him, intrigued but puzzled. "Silence? I don't think I could ever find silence in my life. There's always too much going on." Riku nodded, understanding the sentiment all too well. "It's not easy, but it's worth it. Start small. Find a few minutes each day to just be still, to listen to the silence. You might be surprised at what you discover." As Riku walked home that night, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. The monk had shown him a simple truth, one that had been there all along, hidden beneath the noise of his life. Silence was not something to fear or avoid, but a source of strength and clarity. It had changed his life, not by removing him from the world, but by helping him see it with new eyes. Several months later, Riku returned to the temple to visit the monk. This time he came not as a troubled young man seeking answers, but as a friend. He found the monk in the same spot under the cherry blossom tree, his eyes closed, a serene expression on his face. When the monk opened his eyes, he smiled at Riku. "Welcome back, my friend. How have you been?" Riku sat down beside him, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. "I've been well, Sensei. Your teachings have changed my life in ways I never imagined. I wanted to thank you, and to ask how can I continue to grow in this practice of silence." The monk looked at him thoughtfully. Silence, like any practice, deepens with time. The more you embrace it, the more it reveals. But remember, Riku, silence is not just the absence of sound. It is a state of being, a way of living. It is about being fully present, fully aware, and fully alive in each moment. It is about listening to the whispers of your heart and allowing that inner wisdom to guide you. Riku nodded, understanding the depth of the monk's words. "I see now that silence is not something you master, but something you live. It's a journey, not a destination." The monk smiled, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "Exactly. And on this journey there is no end, only deeper and deeper levels of understanding. Continue to practice, to listen, and to be still. The more you do, the more you will discover the true power of silence." As Riku left the temple that day, he felt a profound sense of peace and purpose. He knew that the practice of silence would continue to shape his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine. It was a journey he was eager to continue, a path that led not away from the world, but deeper into it. And so Riku carried the lessons of silence with him, finding strength and clarity in the quiet spaces of his life. He became a beacon of calm in a world of chaos, a living example of the power of silence. And in doing so, he discovered the real truth that in the stillness of silence we find the answers we seek, the peace we crave, and the wisdom to live a life of true fulfillment.